Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going on a deep dive into something pretty fundamental, the scientific method.
Sounds exciting.
It is, really. Our source material is an excerpt from this text, the scientific method, the engine of discovery.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I'm really excited to break this down because, sometimes the phrase scientific method can sound a little, well, dry.
Yeah, I get that. Like a boring checklist you got to follow.
Right. But honestly, this is way more dynamic and way more fascinating than just a list.
Totally.
We'll explore how this process actually works, its strengths, limitations, and why it's actually relevant to everyone, even if you don't think you're a scientist.
You're so right. It's often presented as this rigid, set of rules.
Yeah.
But it's really a way of thinking, a way of approaching the world with curiosity and a healthy dose of skepticism, right?
So it's less about memorizing steps and more about cultivating a certain mindset.
Exactly. Like, take the discovery of penicillin, for example.
Oh, okay.
Alexander Fleming didn't just, stumble upon it by chance.
Right.
It was his observation, his very keen observation of mold on a petri dish, and his curiosity, that led him to investigate further.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and that's where the scientific method comes in. It transforms a simple observation into a groundbreaking discovery.
So starting with observation, then, can we talk more about what actually makes a good scientific observation?
It's more than just seeing something, right? A good scientific observation is actively engaging with the world, noticing patterns, asking questions like, why is this happening, or what would happen if?
I like that.
It's about being attentive and being open to the unexpected.
Yeah.
Like Fleming's mold. Sometimes the biggest, the most groundbreaking discoveries come from things we weren't even looking for.
So we've made this interesting observation. What's the next step? What happens next?
That's where we formulate a hypothesis.
Okay.
It's an educated guess, a testable prediction based on, our observation and what we already know. And crucially, a hypothesis must be falsifiable.
Falsifiable, meaning you have to be able to prove it wrong. Why is that so important?
Yeah, exactly. If there's no way to disprove a statement through evidence, then it falls outside the realm of science.
Okay.
For example, all swans are white. That statement is falsifiable because you could find a black swan.
Right.
And that one observation would disprove the entire statement.
So you're creating a statement that's clear enough to be tested?
Exactly. Think of it as a starting point, a proposed explanation we can rigorously test.
Okay.
And that leads us to the heart of the scientific method, the experiment.
Okay, so this is where we roll up our sleeves and really put our hypothesis through its paces.
Absolutely. Experimentation involves designing a test to examine our hypothesis. And the key here is controlling variables.
Okay.
We want to isolate the specific factor we're testing and see how it affects the outcome. Like going back to our swan example, if we're testing the hypothesis that swan color is determined by diet, we need to make sure that other factors like genetics and the environment are controlled. Otherwise, we can't be sure what's influencing the color.
That makes sense. It's like making sure you're only changing one ingredient at a time when you're tweaking a recipe.
Perfect analogy.
So once we've conducted the experiment, what happens next?
Data analysis.
Yeah.
We gather our results, we crunch the numbers, we look for patterns.
Okay.
Does the evidence support our hypothesis, or does it point us in a different direction?
Right.
And this step often involves using statistical tools to help us make sense of the data.
And what if the data doesn't support the hypothesis? Is that like a failure?
Not at all.
Oh, okay.
In fact, some of the most significant advancements have come from disproven hypotheses.
Really?
Yeah, the goal isn't to be right. It's to get closer to the truth.
Right, okay.
Even if an experiment disproves our initial idea, it provides valuable information that can lead us to a better understanding.
I like that. A reminder that science is a process, a journey of discovery, and not a destination.
You got it. And to ensure the quality of these discoveries, we have peer review.
So it's not enough for the researcher to just be convinced by their own findings. They need a second opinion, like they need to check it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Before a study is widely accepted as valid, it undergoes scrutiny from other experts in the field.
Okay.
This is crucial to catch potential errors, biases, or inconsistencies, things that the original researchers might have missed.
It's like having a team of fact-checkers for science.
Yes. Peer review ensures that the research meets the high standards of the scientific community and that the findings are reliable. It's a testament to the collaborative nature of science.
I see. So we've observed, hypothesized, experimented, analyzed our data, passed peer review. Where does that leave us?
This is where a well-supported hypothesis can become a scientific theory.
This is where things can get a little tricky because, in everyday conversations, the word theory gets thrown around so casually.
I know, right?
Like, it's just a hunch or a guess.
It's like, oh, I have a theory.
Exactly. But in science, a theory is a much bigger deal, right?
Huge. A scientific theory is a well-substantiated explanation backed up by a huge amount of evidence.
Okay.
It's not just a single idea, but a framework that helps us understand and predict natural phenomena. Like, think about the theory of gravity or evolution.
Right.
Cornerstone theories that explain a vast array of observations and have stood the test of time.
But even those cornerstones, even those established theories can be refined or revised over time, right?
Yeah. Science is about continuous learning. If new evidence emerges that challenges an existing theory, scientists are open to adjusting, even completely overturning it.
That's pretty cool.
It's not about clinging to dogma. It's about seeking the most accurate understanding of the world.
So we've covered the steps of the scientific method and how a hypothesis becomes a theory, but I'm curious about its limitations. Are there areas where it falls short?
That's a great question. And it's important to acknowledge that the scientific method, while powerful, isn't a magic bullet. It's great for studying things that are observable and measurable, but it can struggle with questions that are, subjective or value-laden.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Imagine trying to scientifically measure the beauty of a sunset or the meaning of life. These concepts are deeply personal, influenced by individual perspectives, making them difficult to approach through, objective scientific inquiry.
Okay, there are some things science can't quantify.
Exactly. The scientific method is powerful, but it's essential to recognize its limitations. Some questions might lie beyond its scope.
So even with this incredible tool, we still have so much to learn and explore.
And that's what makes it so exciting. We're constantly pushing those boundaries of knowledge, refining our understanding, discovering new mysteries to unravel.
Speaking of unraveling mysteries, we've talked about how the scientific method works in the lab, but how does all this relate to our everyday lives?
Great question.
That's a really good question. How does it all relate to everyday life?
It's fascinating to consider. We might not be, in the lab with beakers and test tubes.
Yeah.
But those underlying principles, observation, questioning, testing, refining our understanding,
right,
those are incredibly valuable for everyday challenges
and
for making more informed decisions,
So, again, it's less about the steps and more about that mindset.
Yeah, the curiosity and critical thinking. Think about how we approach, like, a faulty appliance.
Okay, yeah.
We observe the symptoms.
Yeah.
We come up with ideas about what's causing it. We test them by, trying different solutions. And we refine our approach based on those results.
It's like we're all mini scientists in our homes, constantly experimenting.
Exactly. And this same approach, you can use it for so many situations. Evaluating health claims, making financial decisions.
Okay.
Like, let's say you see a news headline about a miracle cure.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of just accepting it, you apply a little bit of skepticism. Ask yourself, what's the evidence? Are there any studies, any credible research?
Right.
What are the risks?
So it's about taking a step back, not just accepting information, but really digging deeper, asking those critical questions.
Absolutely. And that's where the scientific method can be so powerful. It gives us this framework for evaluating information, separating fact from fiction, making informed choices.
That's especially important now. We're just bombarded with information.
Constantly. News, social media, advertisements.
Right.
All competing for our attention, and often with totally different information.
It's overwhelming.
Having these, critical thinking skills honed by the scientific method can help so much. Sift through the noise and make sense of it all.
So we've talked about evaluating external information, but what about applying these principles to personal growth, like self-discovery? Is that possible?
It's an exciting area,
Yeah.
Might not involve traditional lab experiments, but we can definitely apply those principles of observation, hypothesis testing, to understand ourselves and foster, personal growth.
I'm not sure I totally follow.
Okay, think of it this way. We can observe our own thoughts and feelings and behaviors with that same curiosity and attention to detail a scientist would use.
So turning that lens inward, becoming a researcher of our own inner world.
Exactly. Let's say you notice you procrastinate on certain tasks.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of just getting frustrated, approach it with curiosity. Like, what are the triggers?
Right.
Are there patterns? What types of tasks do you avoid?
Interesting.
What are the thoughts or feelings behind it?
So we're basically forming hypotheses about our own behavior.
Yes. And just like an experiment, we can test those hypotheses. Try different strategies, track our progress, see what works best. Treat personal growth as an ongoing experiment.
So instead of feeling stuck, we use the scientific method to create change.
You got it. It's about understanding our own minds and behaviors and making choices, conscious choices, that align with our goals.
I love that. But I have to admit, sometimes it feels like my emotions get in the way of thinking clearly, objectively about myself. How do we, account for that when applying the scientific method?
That's a great point. Our emotions can definitely cloud our judgment.
Yeah.
Make it tough to view things objectively. But instead of seeing emotions as obstacles, what if we saw them as valuable data?
Okay.
Emotions tell us about our needs, our values. By paying attention, we can gain insights into what matters.
Okay.
What's causing stress, discomfort. Like if you feel anxious in social situations, that's information.
Yeah.
Not about suppressing it, but understanding the triggers. And then you can experiment with strategies, right?
Right.
To navigate those situations more effectively.
So it's like we're integrating that emotional dimension into our personal growth experiments.
Exactly. Embracing the complexity of being human. Recognizing that emotions are part of who we are.
This is all making so much sense. The scientific method can be a powerful tool for self-discovery. Are there, real-world examples of this approach, helping people understand themselves?
Absolutely. One that comes to mind is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
CBT, I've heard of that. Can you remind me what it is?
So CBT focuses on the connection between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors,
Okay.
based on the idea that our thoughts really influence our emotions and actions.
So if I'm constantly thinking negative thoughts, that's going to affect how I feel and act.
Exactly. And CBT therapists, they often use techniques borrowed from the scientific method to help people identify and challenge those negative thought patterns.
Interesting. How would that work?
Let's say someone is struggling with social anxiety, right? And they have this thought, everyone's judging me.
Oh, yeah.
The therapist might help them test that thought, gather evidence for and against it.
Okay.
Ask, what's the actual evidence that people are judging you?
Right.
Have you had positive social interactions? What's the worst that could happen? By looking at the evidence, objectively, they can start to challenge those thoughts, develop more balanced perspectives.
We're applying the scientific method to our own internal dialogue.
Yeah, testing the validity of our beliefs, and by challenging those negative thoughts, replacing them with more helpful ones, people can see huge improvements in their mood, their behavior, their well-being.
It's amazing, really. This thing we associate with labs can be a tool for healing and growth.
It shows the versatility of the scientific method, its potential to illuminate not just the world out there, but the world within.
Now, we've been focusing on individual benefits, but I'm also curious about broader societal implications. How does the scientific method impact society as a whole?
Yeah, that's a great point. How does the scientific method impact society as a whole?
It's something really interesting to think about. I mean, the scientific method has been this driving force, behind so many advancements that have shaped the world as we know it.
Medicine, technology, agriculture, communication, all of it. It's not just about individual discoveries in a vacuum. It's this collective pursuit of knowledge that benefits all of us, right?
Can you give some specific examples of that societal impact?
Think about vaccines.
Okay, yeah.
Through observation, experimentation, testing, scientists have created vaccines that have eradicated diseases like smallpox and significantly reduced the incidence of others, like polio and measles.
Right.
It's had a huge impact on global health and life expectancy.
Yeah, it's incredible to think something like a vaccine, something that seems so simple, can have such a massive impact.
It is, and it's not just healthcare. I mean, the scientific method has led to technological innovations that have changed how we live, how we work, how we connect. The internet, smartphones, renewable energy, all rooted in the scientific method.
It's not just about scientists working in labs, it's about these discoveries going out into the world and shaping society, right?
Exactly. It's woven into our modern world. that the engine of progress, driving innovation, helping us solve complex problems.
That makes me think about the challenges we're facing with climate change. It seems like the scientific method is crucial for finding solutions.
Absolutely. Scientists are using it right now to study climate change, right?
Yeah.
To predict future impacts, test solutions like renewable energy, carbon capture. It provides that framework,
It's a reminder that the scientific method isn't just about making cool discoveries. It's about using knowledge to build a better future.
Exactly. Harnessing that power of inquiry and reasoning to solve problems, improve lives, and, well, ensure the well-being of the planet, for future generations.
So as we wrap up our deep dive here, I'm left with this sense of, awe and excitement. It's truly remarkable how this process has shaped how we understand the world.
I agree. The scientific method is a testament to human curiosity, our ingenuity. We don't have to just accept things at face value.
Yeah.
We can ask questions, seek evidence, challenge those assumptions.
And that's a message everyone can take to heart, whether we're scientists, students, or just people navigating everyday life.
Well said. It's not just a set of steps. It's a way of thinking, engaging with the world that empowers us to think critically, solve problems, make better decisions.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us and exploring the scientific method.
It's been my pleasure. Keep those minds curious and those questions coming.
Yes.
The world is full of mysteries, and with the scientific method as our guide, we can go on that journey of discovery together.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.